Hello. Today we're going to see how we can use Jasper Report Server 6.1 to connect and report on our MongoDB database. With 6.1, we added a new set of tools and drivers that simplify the use of MongoDB with Jasper Report Server ad hoc views and domains. So let's first take a look at my MongoDB instance and the collections that I will be working on. Let's take a quick look at our environment. As you can see, I have MongoDB running here in my local host, and this will be the instance that I will be connecting to. In this MongoDB instance, I have a couple of collections, and we will focus in the orders collections that I have. It's a very simple collection. There's nothing fancy about it, and as MongoDB allows me, I do have an embedded document. So my collection has my orders with an order ID and the customer, and then I have my order lines, which are in an array of embedded documents. As you already know, this is the way that in MongoDB we model a one-to-many relationship. This tends to complicate things when you are using products that are based on standard SQL and standard relational databases. If you're using our native MongoDB connector, this is not a problem because you can query this collection as you would in Mongo. But for ad hoc and domains, the domains need to rely on the paradigm of a relational schema. So let's take a look at how we tackle this problem with the new tools in 6.1. The first tool we're going to use is the MongoDB schema tool. The idea is that with this tool, it allows us to map our current collection structure into a schema that the domain designer will understand. This, with the help of the new MongoDB driver present in 6.1, will allow domains to actually interact with your Mongo database with embedded documents as if it were any other type of relational data store. The schema tool is located in your Jasper Report Server install. So if you go to your Tomcat folder and Jasper Server Pro, under the web INF directory, you will have a folder called Tools. In this Tools folder, you'll find a file called schematool.jar, which is an executable jar file that you can double-click to run the schema tool. Let's do it. So the first thing we want to do is create a new schema. So we go to Create New Schema. We pick a location for the file. This file will eventually be uploaded to the Jasper Server repository. I will place it on my desktop for now and name it New Schema. Then we add our connection information to Mongo. In my case, it's localhost, and the port number, which is the standard port for Mongo, 27017. And in my particular case, I'm not using authentication. Let's click on Open Schema Definition and get to work. Here we'll want to pick Normalize. So what this will do is essentially map my current Mongo structure into a normalized structure. So you can see from the left and right how my arrays will actually be wrapped up into different virtual tables that I will be able to join. Let's see how this looks like. So you see in my test database, I have my orders, and now in this new schema, which is virtual, I do have my orders table and an order lines table. I'll bring Mongo to the mix so we can better understand how this virtual schema mapping works. As you see, what happened here is that essentially my collection was turned into two different tables in this new virtual schema. An orders table, which has all the properties of the main orders collection, and an order lines table, which contains the objects inside the array of each one of my documents. The virtual schema will also create some new virtual IDs that will allow me to join this information as if it were stored in a relational database. But the driver instead will create the proper Mongo query to retrieve the fields that I'm looking for. Let's save this schema and do a little demo on how this works. So let's log into Jaspersoft and begin working. I'll go to the repository, and I have created a folder for this sample, which is called Mongo example in my repo, and I'll be using that for this demo. the first thing I will need to do is to upload the schema we just created into a repository. So I'll go to Add Resource and File and select MongoDB schema. I'll pick the file that I have in my desktop, the one we just saved. Select a meaningful name for it. That's the name that we'll use to refer to the schema from the data source itself. So now just click Submit to save it. Now that we have our new schema saved, let's go and create the data source. Add Resource, Data Source, and we pick MongoDB from the select box. Notice there are two types of MongoDB connections. The one that we want for using this schema is the MongoDB JDBC data source. The other one is our standard native MongoDB connector. So we're filling the host and our port. The only thing we need to give it is actually point this to our schema, the one we just uploaded to the repo. So by clicking Browse, we can actually search that up in the repository and point to it. Of course, if you're using authentication, you will have to add your username and password. And with this, we're good to go. Just click Save, choose our folder in the repository where we're going to save our data source, and that's it. With this, we're ready to start building our domain and analyzing the data we have in Mongo. Let's go for it. As with any standard domain, we'll pick a name for it. We'll select the Save folder, so we put it in the same place where we have all our other objects. And let's pick the data source and point to the data source we just created. With all this, we're ready to open the domain designer and pick our schema. So the schema list we see, it's the same one we designed on our schema tool. So you can see them here side by side. From here, we'll pick test, which is where we define the schema for our collection. When we pick that, you can see that the orders and order lines are exposed in the domain designer as tables. And those are the two that we will select for our domain. So we also want to make sure that we have this item check. This will inspect the tables and automatically generate the joins for me. Since I have my foreign keys and primary keys already done on that virtual schema, the domain already added my inner join between the orders and the order lines table. With this relation already built, we can go to the display, and we can see our join tree there. Even though we see these as two different tables with a relation, the information resides on only one Mongo collection, and everything that the ad hoc view will do through the domain will be converted into a Mongo query that will receive the aggregations or the fields that we select from there. Okay, so we're now ready to go. Let's add these two tables and save our domain. Everything looks fine, so click Submit, and we have our domain here in the repository. So let's see this at work. We go to Create an ad hoc view, find our MongoDB domain we just created, select it, and you can see here the orders and order lines. We'll pick both. I'll pick a simple table report to prove that we're querying the data from our collection. In our table, we'll pick the ID, and then from the order lines, we will pick the line number and the product. So let's now go to the console and bring our MongoDB collection so we can see how the data lines up. Now that we have them side by side, let's look at the order with the ID 1001. You can see I have 3 line numbers with 3 products, and those exactly are the ones that are contained in the array inside my collection. Now you can see that with this new JDBC Mongo driver in TIBCO Jaspersoft, you have the capability of fully leveraging domains and the push-down capability that brings to the ad hoc views. And this is another way you can take full advantage of the BI capabilities of TIBCO Jaspersoft with your non-SQL data store. Thank you for watching.